So good evening and welcome to this edition of Meet the Judge live on Facebook and YouTube. Before I begin to introduce my guests tonight, I just want to mention, because this has a wide viewership, the fact that we had an incident here in Ireland during the week where a litter of 6 corgis were stolen from one of our friends, Mary Butler, who has a kennels in County Kilkenny. If anybody has any information, there's 3 dogs, 3 bitches, black and white predominantly. We have a feeling they may have gone to the UK, so if anybody's watching and they know of anything, particularly the guards mentioned to us that check abandoned sheds or outhouses, we would very much appreciate it. You can private message any of us on Facebook. We do have a slight lead, but we don't know if it's going to turn up. So just bear that in mind. Tonight we travel across the Atlantic to America, and I'm joined tonight by Michael Faulkner, who a lot of you will know, a very renowned golden retriever judge under the Woods Point prefix, and of late, together with his partner, Dr. Anne Greenbank, Vadoro prefix. Michael has been very active in dogs for most of his life, has been mentored by some of the greats, particularly within English gun dogs, and particularly, I think probably your surrogate mother and main mentor, Peggy Grayson, has dominated the sporting group for many years with his partner David White, and continues to breed successfully. Very popular judge amongst the States, and indeed when he's travelled abroad has been very popular when he's judged here. Good evening, Michael.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Yes, it's afternoon in where you are. It's 2 p.m.
Yes. Yeah.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's a brisk, cool day, but the sun is shining bright, and it feels good. Life is good.
And how is life in general in the States right now? Because you have, with COVID, gone through quite a rocky patch.
Well, the good thing is, and God willing, it continues. You know, the distribution of the vaccine has been successful, and it's continuing, and we're seeing a downturn in the number of new cases. And I know that I'm on weekly federal and state COVID calls because I'm the director of a free health center that serves 9 counties in the state where I live, and so I have the pulse on what's going on, and they're just releasing the new Johnson and Johnson vaccine, and that will be widely distributed. So, you know, it's looking good, but it's no time to let down our guard.
And as you say, you manage a healthcare center in Virginia, and I think it's you know, I mean, we all take our hat off to each and every one of you, because what you do is phenomenal. And I don't, even though, yeah, people go out and clap, I don't think you really get enough kudos for what you're actually doing, and the frontline work that's been happening. Yeah, it must have been quite stressful.
Yeah, it was. And the good thing is, you know, from day one, we never shut our doors once. And my staff and the providers and the management staff, nobody took time off. They were right there in full PPE, doing everything they could to make sure that patients' needs were met. So, you know, they were very courageous and continue to be so. So it's good.
And how are you coping with the reports that we get on this side of the Atlantic, are that there are a lot of people who really don't want to take the vaccine? They don't believe in the vaccine. Is it a big problem?
It is, and it depends on where you live. and that mentality tends to be stronger in the deep South and Florida and Texas. And I hate to say that at times it's politically motivated, and but I think the success in the distribution and will prove itself right in the end. And I think continuing to educate and through statistics and common sense to the general public about the value of getting vaccinated is crucial. And I know that we continue to do that on a daily basis. And so, you just continue to beat the drum, and hopefully people will come to their senses.
Are you more hopeful now?
Oh, yes, I am. I'm not, I'm hopeful if everybody follows protocol. I'm a little stressed that the governor of Texas has now lifted all precautions, and that's scary, and it should not be happening. So from that perspective, no, but I know from our area and state, we continue to be steadfast in the quest to conquer this. And so with a little hope and prayer, we can move, that it's going to keep continuing getting better.
Well, hopefully, as you say, this time mid-year, we will be looking at a brighter future. And as I say, I can only take my hat off to what you're doing and what anybody in that particular sector is doing.
Thank you.
So, as I said in your introduction, Michael, you have a lifetime in dogs.
Yes.
Were your parents involved in dogs? Did you have dogs as you were growing up, or is it something you sort of morphed into?
No, I grew up with purebred dogs. My father was active in UKC, which was the United Kennel Club, and he bred black and tan coonhounds and blue ticks, and to this day, the youngest group-winning black and tan coonhound in the country is still one of mine, and that's pretty exciting. And my mother, of course, she was dear friends with Peggy Grayson, and she had Field Spaniels, and then in the late '60s we acquired Golden Retrievers, and that's been my passion ever since, along with other breeds that came along the way. But actually, my first purebred dog, who was born 30 days prior to my birth to the day, was a beagle, and she lived with me. She lived with me for the first 17 and a half years of my life. So that was my first dog.
And did you show her, or was she just
no? She was strictly my companion.
So Golden Retrievers, what as you said that's where you started. What really attracted you to them?
Obviously their beauty, their sensibility and temperament, and the workability, because we lived in rural upstate New York. I liked the retrieving aspect, and it was just it met my personality needs. So there was a great bond with a mutual respect for getting the job done in a calm, steadfast nature, and nothing hyper. So it was good.
Did it take you, when you started showing Golden Retrievers first, did it take you long to win, or did you, because you had that background within them, did you sort of just fall into naturally achieving?
Well, from the first litter, I took the first dog. I remember going to my first match show, which would be parallel to an open show, and Lester was his name, and he was best of breed, and then I got second in the sporting group, and that just, to this day, it's one of my favorite wins, because I won this green glass relish tray that I still have today in memory of that win, and that was in the early '70s, and it's been moving forward since then with various breeds, but Golden Retrievers always along the way.
Again, as I mentioned in your introduction, you've got a huge backstory and connection with the UK, and some of the some of the legends in gun dogs in the UK, and Peggy Grayson, obviously. But you've learned with Ray Furness, Mary Rosalind Williams, Kay Holmes, and I'm just naming a few. Did you move to the UK? Did you commute to the UK? How did those connections begin, and how much of an influence were they on you?
Well, as a young lad, so to speak, that's what Peggy called me. She welcomed me into her home, and I usually traveled at least once or two times a year for extended periods of time, and usually during my breaks and holidays. And Peggy took me under her wing, and I was the son that she never had, and my passion and sponge-like mind for all things that we mutually loved, she fostered and guided, and I am forever indebted to her loving kindness that she bestowed upon me, and the richness of the experiences that I was offered. It was invaluable.
And am I right in thinking that she traveled to the States?
Yeah, she
To
traveled
you as
several
well?
times. Yeah,
Am I?
yeah. She
Can I
came
show?
over. Huh?
Can I show that photograph you sent me?
Oh, of my mom and Peggy?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, sure.
This is Peggy Grayson with Michael's mom, and I don't know what's being said there, but it's probably not. It's hilarious whatever is being said there. They look like they're having a great time.
Yeah, that was taken at the farm, and that actually they were sitting on the porch of the kennel staff, and they were cutting it up with the girls while they were Xing the dogs in the paddocks. So that was yeah.
Okay. And how important was it or how important were all of those contacts that you had
Well, I think
in informing your knowledge, your background?
Well, I think for me personally, I'm of the mindset that you only need to meet one great breeder and see one great dog to imprint what they should be. And Peggy offered me the opportunity over a span of decades to travel with her to some of the great kennels and great breeders multiple times in the UK to sit down and visit, and several of them took me in as members of the family, and to be able to meet with Ray Furness and discuss clumbers and see great clumbers, and to go and sit multiple times with Mary Rosalind Williams and discuss Labradors, not only from the show perspective, but from the working perspective. And then to sit there as a young child, and Peggy always told me, just listen, don't speak unless you're spoken to. And to listen to those two ladies talk about, for instance, I remember one afternoon we stopped into Mary for tea, and the entire conversation was about setters, and they discussed the make and shape and bone, why make and shape of bone was so important and different in each of the setters, and why, based on location and terrain and what they were bred to do. And those are all things that I just absorbed. And then Faith Gillum and Topjoy, I mean, for me, to actually have the experience of seeing a Sussex Spaniel bitch like Champion, Topjoy, Nutmeg, for me, again, that imprinted in a young mind, breed, essence, and type, and I will never forget that. And so it's just experiences like that, and Kay Holmes and going down to her home. I always loved it. She had a pink house, and I loved that to begin with. But just to go in, and she had English cockers that just oozed essence and type, and those are just things you never forget. And then multiple times at Joan Gill and Daphne Philpott's kennel, Wesley Golden Retrievers. to sit and just listen and look. And again, not from just the show perspective, but those ladies were instrumental in the workability of the Golden Two, and Ron and Madge Bradbury of Norton Wood. So the list is long, and I'm like I said, I'm forever grateful.
You can only imagine how wonderful that must have been, because I mean, Ray Furness, Clumber Spaniels. I mean, what didn't she know about Clumber Spaniels? And I mean, ultimately culminating in that Best in Show win across with Garfield, handled by Ralph Dunn. I mean, it's such a huge background of knowledge that you must have picked up, so much that not many people have actually.
Yeah, and even so, I mean, when Peggy was writing the book on the history and management of the Clumber, I drove around with her with a notepad, and we would go and visit various locations, just collecting data points for the book, and that was fun too.
Yes, and do you think that up and coming breeders, up and coming people that are starting out in breeds, don't pick the brain or learn from mentors like those people nowadays enough?
I can only speak for the U.S. And I would have to agree. I think that judging and showing dogs is such a business in the United States, and people get paid money to do it, and there is this quest to just collect and get multiple groups and become an all-arounder, because then that makes you more marketable, not necessarily a better judge, but it gets you more assignments, which invariably then puts money in your pocket. And there are a percentage of judges that do it for the right reasons, but there are a lot of judges that are the check the box model and move through the system without a clear understanding of the essence of breeds.
Yes, yeah. So, as an exhibitor, what's been your biggest achievement?
It's funny because on multiple levels, it could be my very first win as a child, but I think for me, within Golden Retrievers, was winning Best to Breed at the Golden Retriever Club National Specialty, and our National Specialty is huge. And then in the 80s, my first multiple Best in Show winning Golden Bitch. Every year, the Golden Retriever Club of America has 3 regional nationals, the Eastern, the Central, and the Western. And in that same year, I believe it was 1987, my Golden Bitch won all 3 in 1 year. And it's the only time I ever put her on an airplane to fly, because we had to fly to the East Coast, the West Coast, and of course in the Midwest. But she won all 3 in 1 year, so that was pretty remarkable.
So this is your BOB at the national.
That was in 2018 with a bitch that was not even 2 years old.
So talk us through her.
She's a Vidoro bred bitch, and she is just an amazing temperament. Is gorgeous. She's moderate. She's balanced. She's got 4 legs underneath her, and she's just producing some beautiful puppies right now. And we've got 9-week-old puppies out of her right now, who is bred to a former national specialty winner, Frozen Seaman. And she's a joy to live with. And once she comes back into her own, she's going into field trial training.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So very much dual purpose and fit for function.
Yep.
We also have another photograph you sent me of Yum Yum, which
my favorite show dog. Yeah.
This
is my first group winning pug, and her name was Champion Bonjour Yum Yum. And to this day, I have never shown a dog that was more joyous than her. She gave 200% in and out of the ring. And she was, I just look at her and I get a big smile on my face, because I just adored this dog.
Yeah, she looks, so as I say, your life has been golden retrievers predominantly. What you have fields also shown bred Field Spaniels, yes.
Yeah, I bred
Um,
Field Spaniels, Springers,
mhm.
Pointers, and Pugs, and Black and Tan
But
Hounds.
but your passion is golden retrievers.
Yes.
Yeah. So um, when you're choosing to breed a bitch to a dog, um, are you very much a pedigree studier, or do you use your eye and say, well, I think that bitch will suit that dog, or is it a combination of both?
Well, it's a combination of both, but pedigree always comes first.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I already know, like I just mentioned, we have puppies out of the bitch that you showed a picture to. Um, I'm already planning pedigrees 2 generations away from that. So for me, it's all about the pedigree.
Mm, mm, okay. Um, so, in terms of your judging career, when did you start judging first?
Well, I judged my first open show at age 15, and then I was licensed.
15.
Yeah, I was 15 years old.
Okay.
I'll never forget it. It was the Olean Kennel Club in New York State, and I was petrified, and it was a great learning experience because when I got in the ring at the group level, I immediately knew that I didn't know what I was doing. So it made me realize quickly. And Peggy used to always tell me that when you go in the ring to judge, you better have done your homework. And I realized that I didn't do my homework, and dogs were presented to me that I was like, I had to fake my way through it. And
Okay.
yeah, so, and then I started judging at the championship level at the age of 34 in 1995.
Okay. All right. I'm going to interrupt now because we've got a question coming in, which is just goes back slightly to working ability, etc. And it's from Jane Hayward, and she's just saying that is it a concern that many show dogs are losing their working abilities, and that a lot of countries have show champion titles as opposed to um, uh, full titles? Do you think this is a concern?
It is for me personally, especially within golden retrievers, because back in the late 60s through the 70s and early 80s, everybody who had a golden retriever, whether and if it was a show champion, they also got a working certificate attached to it. It was just the norm, and the breed has moved away from that here, so you see less and less of it. However, with that said, we have other breeds, Gordon Setters, Vizslas, Brittany's, and they're all serious about the dual purpose of the breed. So I'm hoping that tides will turn the other way, but I agree that it's something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it is something that can't be lost within gun dogs or any sporting breeds. In actual fact, whether or terriers or hounds, that fit for function and natural ability has got to be kept.
Yeah, later this month, in 2 weeks, the Vizsla National Specialty Field Trial is just 14 miles from my house. So I'm going to go and watch, just because, by watching breeds do what they're intended to do makes you a better judge, and you have a clearer understanding of when you go in the ring. It's essential.
So, aside from nobody telling you to read your standards before you started judging, what was the best piece of advice you were given?
Again, it was given to me. Well, I have to say that all of my mentors gave me the same advice, but as a youngster, Peggy always said, it doesn't matter who's on the end of the lead, just always put up the best dog, and don't worry about it. Be true to your heart and just put up the best dog. And it's not always easy. And I've lost some friendships because people thought that they should have won because of our relationship, and then that quickly tells you that there was no relationship to begin with.
Absolutely, I think that is one of the most important things for aspiring judges to realize, that you are always going to be judging your peers. You are always going to be judging your friends.
Yep.
And you can't please them all.
Nope.
And there's no point even trying. And if you start doing that, you may give up judging.
Yep.
Judge the dogs. And there was a famous Irish terrier man, I think it was Jerry Sweeney, who showed Irish Terriers here, who said, you know, if I were judging friends, you would be best of breed.
Yep.
Every time.
Yeah.
But,
well, for me, you know, it's unfortunate that our system, and you know, most systems around the world, you know, you only have so much time to evaluate breeding stock. And you know, I love to talk and verbalize the decision-making process, and we're told not to do that. So, I mean, it would clear up a lot if I was able to have a microphone and explain my placings in every class, and then be done with it like they do at livestock shows. But we're not afforded the opportunity, so it leaves a lot of questions in people's minds.
So, just on that note, would you like to see critiquing introduced in the States?
Oh, I would love it.
Or even a grading system?
Absolutely.
And do you think it ever will?
No.
No.
God forbid somebody should be held accountable.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, do you think it's important for aspiring judges to ask questions of breeders and experienced judges prior, or not even prior to their judging career, but even during their judging career?
I think it's paramount and it's essential. However, I preface that with the fact that there are a lot of people that are erratically trying to acquire new breeds and study and learn, so to speak, and they ask the wrong questions from the wrong people, thinking they're going to get the right answers. So I think it's important when you're doing your homework and you're studying that you ask those questions and you're mentored by the very best.
And you are, if I'm correct, you do a lot of mentoring now in your spare time.
I do.
For judges and judges education. So without being too involved or too much, how do you approach that?
Well, I can assess the intent and the integrity of the person that inquires whether or not I will assist them, because all I have to do is ask a few questions, and that tells me whether or not they're serious. And if they're serious, that will lead to another level of sharing and giving on my part. But based on the initial questions that I ask, if the responses that are given, if it shows to me that the nature of the inquiry is not serious and it's just about collecting status, then I will immediately shut it down and say, I am not your person, and I'm so find somebody else.
Okay. Yeah.
Because if I take you in and I want to, I'm so serious about it that I want to know at the end of the day that I make a difference. And God forbid that individual is going to go in the ring and pass judgment in the breeds that I'm a specialist in. And then if they screw it up or something and someone goes to them, they're going to say, well, Michael Faulkner was my mentor, and it's going to fall back on my shoulders.
Fair
so
point.
I want to make damn good sure that whoever I'm sharing my knowledge with is going to be a good steward for that information.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. Do you? I'm not sure what the system is in the States, but I mean, you have ring stewards.
Yes.
Are they professional or are they volunteers? Do you think judges, up and coming judges, should take that role on?
I think actually within the system of AKC, in order to become a judge, it's required. So
Okay.
So the answer to that is yes. But a vast majority of the clubs rely on volunteers to do the ring stewarding. But there are several professional ring steward organizations within the U.S. that clubs contract for, and they get paid to come in and facilitate that need on a daily basis.
And the reason I mention it is because even in spite of the fact that a lot of us might be, well, certainly I'm an FCI all breeds judge, I still enjoy stewarding for judges that I know have a particular specialty, where you can go and steward and say, okay, that's not what I would have done. So, explain, and you learn so much. It really is. Stewarding can give you a great grasp on a breed when you're doing it with a specialist.
Absolutely. I mean, why would you not want that opportunity? I mean, if you have somebody that, well, i.e. yourself, I mean, from American Cockers, if there's somebody near you that is just learning about American Cockers and you're judging and it's a big specialty, I mean, that's a golden opportunity.
So do you judge abroad much?
Yeah, I do. And I judge, I limit it because of my professional time. I don't have a great deal of time to travel the world, but
do you enjoy
I do.
it?
I love it. And as you well know, a couple of years ago, I was in your hometown judging, and just to, it allows you to have a whole new perspective, and not only to meet new wonderful people, but to see differences, and and in a good way. And I left, I'm going to just polarize on my experience in Ireland. I left that weekend and came home so rejuvenated and inspired by the club and the breeders. And I can say, judging my breed there were a group of breeders that exhibited to me that were just amazing, professional in and out of the ring, and their exhibits were of quality and workmanship. And having spoken with all of them, the fact that they all work their dogs in the field as well. And I was just almost in tears of joy, having had that experience. And then to go in and judge the group and to put up, I can't remember the woman's name. I think her first name was Mary, but the quality of a breed with U.S. origins, the Chesapeake Bay Retriever.
Yes,
and
Mary Murray.
This woman, she's got it down. And I gave the young Chessie bitch the group, and I said to her, I said, let me tell you, I said, I don't know where these are coming from, but kudos to you. How beautiful. And then, this woman kept showing these absolutely phenomenal sighthounds to me, Borzois and Whippets. And I'm like, oh my God, where did you come from? Well, then it dawned on me, the Barnsmore. And I mean, it's just the quality, the depth of quality, the kindness, and the dedicated spirit and passion for all things good in the sport. So, I wouldn't have had that experience if I was not judging abroad. And the same thing, did the World Show in Amsterdam, and the same experience there, and in Thailand, and South America. It doesn't matter where. I get these takeaway moments that leave me inspired and full of joy.
I'm so glad you mentioned that Chesapeake Bay, because that woman has, Mary Murray is her name, and I've so often sat at the side of the ring and seen that dog not even make the last four, and I'm thinking, why? It is a beautiful.
Yeah, I gave her.
You did. I remember it.
Yeah, and the other, there's a young lady, Old English Sheepdogs. Oh my God, she had a young bitch that I ran right through to the top prize, and I was just. I mean, this bitch just melted my heart, and that was another moment that I will remember for the rest of my life.
Yes, we're very lucky that our gun dogs are in general quite strong, and win on both sides of the Irish Sea, and particularly in golden retrievers and Labradors, we are very strong. So aside from your own breeds, is there a breed you really like to judge?
There are. I mean, I like all breeds, and to judging all breeds, as long as they're not nasty and dirty. But my aunt, my father's sister, was a breeder of rough-coated collies, and I started as a youngster being involved in that breed, and and showed them in juniors and helped her at dog shows. And I think they're just magnificent. And I absolutely love judging rough collies. And I think it's probably because of my early experience with the breed, but I think there's absolutely nothing more beautiful than a really well-made, put down collie.
Mm. And now that you mentioned rough collies, I know certainly on this side of the Atlantic and possibly throughout Europe, we struggle with a lot with quality of collies. Is that the same in the US?
I don't think so. I noticed when I judge collies on the international level, there are significant differences in make and shape and style. And I mean, obviously they have similar properties, but I think that the focus there's a different head style focus and size and make and shape of bone. And so I think that I know when I judge collies in Europe or in Asia, there's not in Japan because so much of the U.S. Bloodlines are influenced, but generally speaking, it is a different make and shape.
I think and I'm no collie expert, trust me, but I think what we find is that they sometimes favor type over movement. We appear to have lost movement on this side of the world.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Absolutely. There's always, I mean, the headpiece is a huge percentage of the standard, but it is a form and function breed. I mean, they and they have to have the essence of type, but they have to walk. And I'm not going to put up a crippled specimen just because it has this phenomenal face. I think it's a Gestalt approach. I mean, it's parts to whole, and it's forgiving. But first and foremost, head obviously and expression is paramount, but the make and shape and movement also are indicators for type.
And as you say, they are a collie. I mean, they have to be fit for function. They have to be able to move around a field, without tripping over. You mentioned junior showmanship there, which again you were very involved with as growing up, and you were a junior showmanship judge. How important was that element of the sport in your early years?
Oh, I think it was. Well, I don't think I know. For me, it immediately introduced me to other breeds and to other like minds, young, passionate people that are still friends today. And it's a healthy program, and I am a strong supporter of it, and I encourage it at every level.
And you say it was a lot of you are still friends, etc. Was it very competitive, or was it more socially orientated?
Yeah, it's funny because it was competitive, but not so much back in the 70s as it is today. And it's even the competitive nature transcends beyond just the showing of the dog, but the production of it. The outfits, the some of the exaggerated mannerisms, and so the rather basic, simple approach to juniors, and I think the wholesome approach back when I was in juniors has been lost. And I would like to see that come back and just be about young, beautiful people coming in the ring and trying to be as quiet as possible, so all we see is the dog.
I think that's true of most parts of the world, actually, because it was very similar here when I started in junior handling. I mean, suits suits never came into it. No. It was the dog. But I think, but some very professional, some really good handlers,
Beautiful.
worldwide.
Yeah.
So is there a fault that really irritates you?
Well, like I said before, I think, generally speaking, poor sportsmanship and nasty exhibitors, that just irks me to no end. And I know you're talking about the dogs, but that's paramount for me. And then any specimen that is exhibited to me that is not in condition, as a direct fault of lack of care. I mean, if it is a working specimen and it comes in a little thin because it's a field trial dog or something like that, obviously that's not to be penalized. But just basic lack of neglect, that irritates me more than anything. And I think that there are lots of faults that I find irritating, but that would be determined by the breed we were discussing.
Yes. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. So move on now to question 14, which is has there been a particular dog that you've judged that in your opinion is as close to perfect as is possible, or has given you that wow factor? Now, you have sent me a series of photographs.
Well, I think that I want to preface that with the fact that obviously there are no such thing as a perfect dog.
Absolutely.
And for me, my wow factor moments were not necessarily based on a dog showing in the ring and winning, but based on something that was so typey and was so instrumental in imprinting correctness in my mind. Those were wow moments, and those wow moments might have been in a paddock, in somebody's living room, or in the show ring. So I just want to make sure that all my wow moments don't necessarily occur in the ring.
Absolutely. I mean, I think these wow moments are a very personal thing.
Yeah. So,
it's our interpretation.
Yes. So I think that there's some pictures. If you want to show them, I can talk about the dog and why they were wow factor for me.
Let's start with Rifleman.
Oh, this dog is probably one of my most favorite dogs of all time. I remember seeing him for the first time and just being absolutely captivated by his presence, his size, his silhouette, his coat, temperament. I just, in my mind, that for me imprinted what a curly coat should be, and I took that away on that day. The first time I had my hands on him, I was like, "This is one of those moments that I will never forget."
And he was based in
England.
All right. Okay. Well, of course.
He was a Crufts winner, group winner.
And we move on then to this really stunning photograph of Thunderstorm.
That's a painting, and that was a Sheltie Shantara Thunderation that my aunt Molly, who bred collies, they were two handlers. Tom Cohen and Steve Barger used to handle my aunt's dogs, and as a youngster, I would be at the dog shows, and I would offer my services as a young boy to help them carry dogs or hold the brush or the water bucket. And at that time, they were specialing this dog who did a tremendous amount of winning and produced really, really well for the breed. And I just idolized this dog. And again, this dog at that young level, I was able to again imprint that in my mind. And it was funny, many, many years later, I gave Best in Show to a tri-Sheltie out east. And afterwards, the handler came up to me and said, "You want to know something?" And I said, "What?" And they said, "This dog is all line bred on this particular dog." And I was just like, "Wow, what a moment for me,
what a beautiful head.
Yeah, he produced so well.
And then we move on to Kismet's Sight for Sore Eyes, which I have to say looks stunning.
I love this dog, and I know there's probably some shepherd people out there that would, maybe fault his headpiece a little bit or whatever, or he's not extreme enough. But the first time I saw this dog, many years ago, I was judging Best in Show in Atlanta, and it was an outdoor show, and he came in the ring, and he just a moderate, balanced, powerful force to be reckoned with. And I took one look in his eyes, and it's one of those moments I'll never forget it. And he probably to this date is the most soulful, intelligent dog I've ever judged. And he looked at me, and we just carried down this conversation. He was so sensible, and he was poetry. And again, this dog left a huge mark from a breeding perspective. And to this day, when I'm judging shepherds, 9 out of 10 times, everything I put up goes back to this dog.
Wow. That's a hell of a backstory. And now we go on to your own breed, golden retrievers, and we got Muscan, most likely.
Yes, I always loved this dog, and hello, Hillary, if you're watching. And again, just classic, beautiful breed type. And the jacket and the slight wave, the beautiful head, 4 legs underneath them, the gorgeous post-sternum, and the back, the tail carriage, the thick thigh. Those are just, for me, it just oozes breed type. I knew this dog. I've had my hands on this dog, and it just a beautiful animal.
A super head again.
Yes.
And you can actually see the lay back of shoulder on him.
Yep. Beautiful eye placement, and the making shape of the ear, the strong muzzle, just a lovely dog.
So the next question I asked you was, is there a dog, past or present, that you've never judged that you would love to have judged?
For me, it's a golden retriever, and our line of Goldens consistently goes back to this dog, and it would have been champion Davern Figaro. And
again,
yes.
UK, I'm assuming, yes?
Yes, yep. And 3 of my English import Goldens all go back to this dog, and I would have loved to have had my hands on this dog. I would have loved to have owned this dog.
Yeah, I can see why. Yeah. So how we spoke earlier about irate exhibitors, how do you deal with them?
Oh, if there is a situation in my ring, I will stop my judging immediately and tell everybody to take a chill pill, and I'll deal with that person immediately on the spot, and they will get collected, and if apology is necessary, it will take place. Either that, or I'll ask them to leave the ring and take their dolls and dishes and play house elsewhere. I have no patience for that. None.
Does it happen often in the States, or is it something
not? I think initially people will try you, and once they realize that they're not going to get anywhere with that kind of behavior, they'll stop. I may in 25 and a half years of judging, I probably had a total of 5 or 6 incidents where I had to deal with it, and but it doesn't happen often.
In terms of your judging career, and we're still on your judging career, what's been your biggest judging achievement? And I mean, you've done so many things. Is there one that stands out?
I think the most significant is any time that I am invited to and have the honor to be invited to judge at the national level. That to me is the highest compliment that can be bestowed upon a judge, and because you single-handedly are offered the position of transforming and moving forward a breed based on your selections, and and for me that goes to the core of why I do it, and that first and foremost. And I obviously enjoy the numerous times I've judged the Westminster Kennel Club, including the group, the AKC show, the World Show, your show, the big show in Thailand. Anything, those are all prestigious shows, and you're extremely honored to have been asked and judged that. But I have to say the highest level is at any breed that contacts me and asks me to judge at their national.
And you mentioned there about having a chance when you do a national to give your opinion on a breed. Do you think judges have a role in the development of breeds, and if yes, do you think judges understand this enough, or do you think they're a little blasé about it?
Most certainly they have a role, and otherwise they should not be judging at all, in my opinion. And I feel that every time you go in the ring, it isn't not about the dog show. It's about judging breeding stock and what is right for the next generation. And all too often, I have to say, because of the production side of the sport and, winning the dog show versus show dog versus stud dogs, that sort of parallel, I think that, fosters to some extent generic judging at the all breed level. And go in and they don't, the first thing in their mind is not judging breeding stock to move it forward to the next generation. It's about judging a show dog, and there's a huge difference. And
yes.
For me, every time I go in that ring, I want to make sure that first and foremost that I'm judging from a breeder's perspective, which requires a lot of work and understanding. And God knows I don't get it right all the time, but I'm the first to admit it. And if I don't get it right, I'm cleaning my crap up pretty quickly, and I'm going to source and find out how to improve. But I owe it, this sport has been very good to me my entire life, and I owe it to my many mentors that put their blood, sweat, and tears in my well-being to make sure that I get it right, that I don't go home at night after a weekend of judging saying, I wish I should have, could have, would have. And so, yes.
So are you quite harsh when you're doing your own breed?
Am I what?
Are you quite harsh when you're doing your own breed? When you're judging it?
I don't think so, but if you ask that question to the majority of people in the States, they're going to say yes, because our breed, generally speaking, we have some really, really good dogs in our country, but they only come out for specialists, and you're not going to see too many of them at all breed shows.
Okay.
So if I'm at an all breed show, unless somebody comes with dogs knowing that I'm going to like their dog, generally speaking, they're high in numbers and high in mediocrity. And so there's a lot of forgiving, and it can be a struggle at times. And for me, because there are times, case in point, many years ago, we have this program where judges that want to judge your breed will ask to be in your ring and observe while you're judging large entry. And on this particular day at this show, I had about 90 golden retrievers, and the judge was in the ring being observed, and you have to fill out a form afterwards. I judged almost 90 golden retrievers, and I have to say this: there was not one that I felt was a learning experience from a positive perspective. And so after the thing, this gentleman wanted me to sign his form to move him forward. And I said, I can't sign it. I said, because you didn't learn anything today, because I could not offer you anything. So, but on the other hand, there are some damn good dogs here. And I don't want to take away from them, but they're high in numbers, and you got to pick through a lot to finally get something that you.
And when you're in that situation, because that the American system is quite different to what we're used to. When you're in a situation like that, if you have a really mediocre class, do you withhold prizes because you don't have a grading system, or do you just give out one, two, best of whatever, and then discount them for the higher prizes?
There's various degrees. So yes, I have withheld ribbons, and I've withheld championship points in certain breeds over the span of 25 years. However, There's a fine line. So, you know,
Yes.
if it looks like the breed, and if it walks and talks like the breed, you don't withhold ribbons. You've got to judge the class based on what is brought to you. And Ann Rogers Clark, Annie, when I first started judging, matter of fact, the first year I started judging, she took me aside and she said, I want to give you some advice. And she said, this is going to be the best advice I'm ever going to give you from a judging perspective. And I said, what is this? And I'm waiting for something. And she says, more often than not, you're going to be in the ring with a group of dogs that you don't like. And you have to find virtues to place them first, second, third, and fourth. And she said, young man, don't struggle with it. She said, don't look for virtues. She said, look at the class and let's just say there's 7 in the class. Look at the class and say, okay, which one's the ugliest? Put it over here. Okay, now which one's the ugliest? Put it there. And you reverse judge. And then when you get done, you go 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you very much. Get them out of the ring.
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
That is so good.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that. I've lost where I was now. Yeah, so now, for you, the 3 pillars of judging a breed, what would they be?
Well, I mean, you know, understanding history and purpose is paramount.
Yes.
You know, and expose yourself to the best in the breed, in the breed from a breeding perspective, to get opinions of people that know, and then see and touch a great one. That's all it takes.
And in terms of this age-old argument of type versus soundness, where do you hit that balance?
Well, for me, they go hand in hand. I mean, type is first and forefront, but make and shape and soundness is part of type. And I preach it all the time. I mean, I first and foremost want to look at the face of the silhouette of a breed and know that it's that breed. So type is essential, but that type is also indicative of movement. And or movement is indicative of type. So you know, standing and walking, it's all paramount in assessing breed type.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the best explanations I've had yet of that. It makes so much sense. You can have. There's no point having a tightly crippled.
Exactly, and people want to make them different, and they're not. And they're all part of the unit that defines type.
So we move on to your handling career now, Michael. And as I say, you are one of the sought-after handlers in the States. When did you start handling professionally?
I started in 1984 with my then partner, the late David White, and yeah, it was a journey. You know, we both left teaching careers. We were both professional educators and decided to, we met at a dog show because I was taking a break from university, and I went down to shows in Georgia to show one of my golden retrievers at a specialty. And I traveled down with a couple of handlers who were showing my mother's Field Spaniel at the time. She had just imported a dog from Peggy. And the group time came in, and my mother's Field Spaniel won the sporting group, and this gentleman, Springer, went second, and he was irate, and he came out of the ring and threw the ribbon in the trash and was cussing and just pissing and moaning. And he said, I want to know whose, you know what dog is that? And I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, that would be mine. And, later, he invited me to his motorhome, and we had a drink and talked about life, and that started our relationship. And then later on, we established a partnership, and it went from there. Okay,
so I'm going to skip on 2 questions. As you mentioned, David, you and David dominated the sporting groups for probably about 12 years on the trot.
Yeah.
What made the partnership so successful?
I think there was a a real understanding and mutual strength of mutual respect of our strengths, and the dividing of roles within the partnership from a professional perspective about who did what well. And so there were clear lines about roles and expectations within the partnership. And then after all of the work was done at the end of the day, lots of alcohol.
Is there Irish background in your history, is there?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
That's Irish.
That would figure. So, yeah, as a professional handler, and I mean, you must have handled many different breeds over your time. How do you manage to get inside the head of the dog you're handling?
When we were afforded the opportunity to be home when we weren't on the road, and we had a farm in Kentucky, so we had lots of room and huge paddocks for the dogs to run, and we also bred and showed cattle, so there was a vast amount of terrain, and I would sit in the middle of the field, and sometimes with drink in hand, and I would just watch the dogs. And they would come up to just watch them run and be present with them, and with no expectations other than observing. And I think quietly observing an animal affords you a lot of information, and to just be still with the dog. And I highly recommend that with anybody. And then the other thing is my top winning golden bitch. I thought for a minute there she wasn't gonna be able to do what I thought she could do, because she just didn't want to go in the ring and show. And then I realized that what she wanted was to be a retriever. So I knew that every day I had to get her to water or retrieve with her to keep her spirits up. And when I campaigned her heavily for 2 years, I knew wherever I was in the United States, I had to source local water to be able to get her, drive her someplace where I could throw bumpers for her so she could swim. Totally changed her life.
Wow. And have you ever had a dog that you haven't been able to handle?
Oh yeah, actually there was two. One was a Great Dane, and the other was this absolutely fierce Kuvas that one of my clients imported from Hungary, and I was in the group ring. He showed it in the breed. It was the only one entered, and I took it in the group ring, and it tried to eat my face off, and I was able to somewhat hold it upright with the leash and the choker, and the owner ran in the middle of the ring and took the dog away from me, but I was fearful for my life. It was just not a good experience.
Wow. And in terms of achievements, we've heard what your biggest achievement was as a breeder, exhibitor, as a handler.
Again, I think Meg, the golden bitch I was just talking about, that needed retrieving. Back in the heyday, there were two kennel clubs, the Detroit Kennel Club and the Louisville Kennel Club, and those were two of the largest shows in the United States. And in a 2-weekend period, Meg went best in show at Detroit, over 3,300 dogs, and then turned around and won the gun dog group, the sporting group, every day at Louisville, and then went best in show at the Louisville Club for over 5,000 dogs. So in a 2-weekend period, she defeated over 11,000 dogs, which is pretty difficult to do in the U.S.
I think that's her there.
That's her.
Correct?
That is. Yeah.
That's a hell of a sash.
Yeah, and they did it. Louisville is the home of the Kentucky Derby, so they always had. This show was aired on USA Network. It was televised. It was black tie, and then they did a blanket of roses that was put over the back of the winner. But this was it was just a really special moment.
And am I right in saying that the Field Spaniel comes into this category as well?
Yes, without a doubt. A dog that my mother obtained, that we obtained from Peggy, Glad Tidings of West Acres, and I only wish and dream that the breed would come back to this make and shape. And he was a great producer, a wonderful dog, and we can see there are a lot of examples of popular dogs that are great representations of those various breeds. But when you get a rare breed and a rare Flushing Spaniel, to get one that is of this quality, it's a once in a lifetime.
Yeah, I have to say the make and shape looks absolutely stunning, and you rarely see them with that length of leg anymore. Or am I wrong?
No, I mean they're either too low or they're too long, and they look like your spaniels. But to have those proportions, that defines breed type.
Yeah, but absolutely. How long ago was that, Michael?
That would have been in the late 80s.
Yeah, they've changed since then.
Yeah, 80.
So when you're judging handlers, do you adopt a different approach? Are you watching for what they're maybe hiding, or do you just treat them as another exhibitor?
I treat everybody equally. I don't care whether you're a handler, senior citizen, or a little child. I'm there to judge the dog. And what's funny is, the handlers all know that, and I have the utmost respect for the profession. Obviously, I was a former handler, and nothing is better than a quality dog being brought in the ring and exhibited well. But I'm not going to put up a dog that is presented well to a dog that is obviously of better quality because it's shown by an amateur. That's never going to happen under me. And I think the handlers know that, because handlers have, they can have 20 to 30 dogs on any given weekend, and they're running back and forth from rings, and they know the judges on their list of who they have to be in the ring, because that is going to influence the decision of the judge. And 9 out of 10 times the handlers don't make it to my ring. They send the assistant or somebody else because they know it doesn't matter.
That was my next question, actually. Do you think the fact that you were previously a professional handler impacts on them? But you just answered my question, and I find that's very interesting.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Now, you're very involved at club level. You're a member of the GCRA, the GRCA. You're also board member of Take the Lead.
Yeah, and a member of the Morris and Essex Kennel Club, and our local club is the Middle Peninsula Kennel Club of Virginia, which I'm a member of.
And you're also on the Breed Standard Committee for the Golden Retriever, is it?
No, I've rotated off, but I served on that committee for numerous years.
So how important do you think it is for you to give something back to the sport that has been so good to you? And do you think enough, 3-part question, how important do you think it is? Do you think enough people nowadays do so? And third question, do you think we encourage enough people to do so?
Well, I think, number one, it's required. I think any time that you are afforded the luxuries within a sport that I have been afforded, that it is paramount that you do give back in some shape or form, whether it's from a philanthropic level, being a mentor, being a quality club member, through education. It doesn't matter what you choose, but yes, you must give back at some level, because you can't take and take and take. That's not how I was raised. And I have the service above self, and you move forward to make things better. And I'm also, and you mentioned Take the Lead. And for me, I think in the US, that single organization, which was founded in I believe 1991, I believe 1990, it is an organization of all volunteers. The board members don't get paid anything. There's like one administrative paid staff member, and we over decades we have had fundraisers to generate revenue to then give back to people in the sport who who have suffered through life-threatening terminal illness, catastrophes in their life, and currently with COVID-19, natural disasters, they can apply for relief funding. And the organization doesn't give people money, but you apply if you're in a situation. And it all started back in the early 90s when so many people in the sport were affected by AIDS. And
Yes.
And so, a group of well-meaning people got together to create a way to take care of our family, our dog community. And since then, it has just grown and grown and grown. And, we distribute millions of dollars back
Wow.
to the community. But I have to say that the only way we got those millions is because people gave them to us. Because they knew that we were good stewards for those funds to then distribute accordingly. So we are just a vehicle vessel for the kindness and love of people giving back to the sport. So yeah, so I think people, inherently, I believe that all people are good and they're going to think from their heart and move forward. It doesn't happen all the time, no. But generally speaking, people can put aside the competitive nature of winning and losing in the ring to give back to somebody in need outside of the ring that are involved in the sport.
I think that's an amazing way to look at it. Can I just touch on does the States have much of an activist, anti-dog, anti-purebred partisan group? The reason I ask you is I have to take my hats off. I think a lot of people would agree with me. I have to take my hat off to the AKC for putting out that poster they put out recently, where they say, don't buy from puppy farmers or puppy mills, etc., etc. I think that's a genius poster to put out. Do you have much problem with that in the States?
Yes, but there is, there's constantly, we're active and trying to stamp out, breed-specific legislation and the anti-purebred dog movement. And, it is there, it's strong, it's a force to be reckoned with. Is it going away? No, but it's something that, we just have to be so religious in stopping it and putting the right message out through appropriate PSAs that target the benefit of purebred dogs and breed-specific traits that assist in so many aspects of our life beyond the scope of the dog show ring. And whether it's therapy, search and rescue,
yes,
drug search, disease identification, there's it, and those are the avenues that we have to keep beating the drum and pounding on doors and informing people. And I think there's always room for improvement. The poster is great, but I think at a national level, we still have so much to do to put a stop to the negativity and keep things moving forward in the right direction.
And do you think there would be any benefit to the AKC, FCI, perhaps Kennel Club London, etc., sitting down as a lobby group to try and combat this on a grander scale, or
I think
because you need to throw money at this.
Yes, I think that especially, we live in a global society now based on technology, and everything everything's so immediate. I mean, we live in sound bites, and we as an organization have to capitalize on that as a tool for communicating what our concerns are. And I think that other societies, other kennel clubs around the world, you have to put your, and I don't mean this, I don't want to say, but I want to say pettiness aside and realize that we can still respect the differences from an organizational standpoint as far as the registry, but we all have a common goal. And absolutely, there is a force in numbers, and I think it's imperative that we all come together with the like-minded mission to move that messaging forward. I think it's crucial.
I just don't know how we get that message across.
Well, you have to start trying first.
Yes.
You know,
yes, but it has been a common theme amongst a lot of the judges I have spoken to over the last year, that this is something that should be pursued. Yep. So perhaps we'll find somebody to pursue it on our behalf. Now, bit of a thought now on this side of the Atlantic. This is a discussion point. As a golden retriever specialist, there is a train of thought on this side of the Atlantic that golden retrievers in the US are a different breed, along with other breeds, and I would say probably the English Springer Spaniel, perhaps some of the setters, etc., etc. How would you respond to that?
I totally agree 100%. And it is one of my biggest pet peeves is that the fancy in the US have taken various breeds and exaggerated them based on their interpretation or their need, and without the respect of the country of origin. And I hate it. And you know, the standards aren't radically different, and there shouldn't be the scope of interpretation. And it comes down to the simple factor that the focus in our country, not all the breeders, but that focus on show dog versus stud dog. And you know, they think that more is better, glamorizing production from a grooming perspective, and then the way they're exhibited, the expectations of an animal. And when you think of the golden retriever, which is a gentleman's gun dog, I mean, it's a stoic Scottish gun dog that was never bred to be a competitive field trial dog, let alone a show dog that is meant to go in the ring and park itself like a saddlebred and stand there for 20 freaking minutes on its toes with its ears up, baited like a saddlebred horse. It's just absurd. And then, so we have judges who don't know that and don't care to understand that, go in the ring and judge the breed and expect that out of the breed. And that type of erratic behavior, which is then rewarded, which is then bred to, totally alters the temperament of a breed. And then when you get dogs that are expected to live on grooming tables for 1 to 6 hours at a dog show and blown out with hair dryers and cosmetically all of the undercoat stripped out, and they're left like, you know, like Pomeranians bred to gerbils on steroids, and then they go in the ring and run around the ring nice and flop around with their ears on top of their head, that's rewarded. That totally changes form, function, outline, type, and you lose the essence and the respect to the breed. And oh God, I go to bed and I wake up in the morning just praying that when I judge my own breed, you know, that I get a gentleman's gun dog, that I get the beautiful melting expression in the head and the subtle nuances that are appropriate for the breed. I pray that I get a jacket, an undercoat, and a coat that wraps the body and doesn't stick out. I pray that I get a tail that comes off the back and wags, and a dog that will just stand there on its own and move methodically around the ring on a loose lead. Those are the things I dream of. But I got to deal with reality, and I hope and continue my crusade and hope that I make a difference, and I'll take it to my grave.
Do you think we should? Do you think the states should create a new breed?
Absolutely not.
I mean, you've done it. What you did, it was done with the English Cocker Spaniel versus the American Cocker Spaniel, but they.
No, it will not happen. It will not happen. And it's funny because I think there was, when you posted that I was going to be doing this session with you, somebody stated the American Golden Retriever, and I was like, oh my God! I thought I get it, but there's just the Golden Retriever in my mind. I don't care whether you're judging in the United States, South America, Ireland, England, Australia, Japan. For me, there is one Golden Retriever, and that's what I'm striving to look for. And I just, for me, that was, I don't ever want to think that way. And when I go to England, I don't want to say, oh, I'm judging English Golden Retrievers, or I'm judging. I don't do that. I'm judging Golden Retrievers, and so many of the dogs that have blessed me, have a strong English foundation, and to some extent Irish foundation in their breeding stock. I think it's the most offensive thing to say that. And and again, respect for your breed and its country of origin. And I hope we come back, and I just wish everybody would take a second look and reevaluate that.
Well, I can appreciate that as your breed specialist, and I totally see your point of view. But from somebody who's in gun dogs but not in golden retrievers, and for all breeds judges, etc., they are a very different breed.
Well, they are, but
in many ways.
But you can, like, if you came to the United States,
something is wrong. So yeah, okay. And I've asked this question of other judges. When you're judging in other countries, and the type is so much different, what do you do? And they will all say, you judge what's under you.
Well, you do, but that does not alter your understanding of the breed. And so I judge a lot of the breeds. The dogs come in the ring, they're not my cup of tea, but I have to put up the one that's the closest to my cup of tea. And hopefully I can then, if they talk to me and say, well, where do I move forward? I can say, listen, you really need to pay attention to coat texture, make and shape of eye. When it comes to grooming, if I have something that is just so offensive, like I've had entire classes where I've kicked them out of the ring, and I said, okay, go put them all back on the table, wet them down, towel dry them, and bring them back in, because I will not judge them until you do that. So okay, I do that in the U.S.
I'm playing devil's advocate here now.
No, I like
because it's because they are very different to what we would consider the standard for a golden retriever, as set down by the Kennel Club London. Mm-hmm. You'd agree with that, Jess?
No. Yes and no. I think there are a lot of dogs that you would be surprised in our country that look very similar to the dog.
Oh, I'm not saying all. I'm saying they're predominantly, a lot of them are.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
My point is, and my question is, if judges continue to put them up, with high honors and BOBs, how is it going to change?
I think that the parent club is doing a yeoman's job in educating and talking about the essence of the breed. We're really stressing moderation and proper head properties and proper coat and balance, form, and function and temperament. And we are utilizing the social media tool to target these things. We're putting out on a regular basis key points of understanding and judging true golden retriever type. And I think we're making a difference because people are asking questions about what is correct and what isn't. So there is a battle, and we hope to win it. But and it certainly isn't going to happen overnight. And I'm not ready to give up the fight. and because I love the breed too much, and I want to get to the day where I go judge a show and 95% of the dogs are all absolutely beautiful and look like what I think they should look like. Not that we all agree, but they're within a framework of acceptability. And we can start. I mean, even if we just start with coats alone, okay, you know, that
What's
in
the starting
itself,
point? Absolutely.
yeah, if we
Absolutely.
just, you know, it's baby steps. And if we can start with coats alone, then we can talk about temperament. And, you know, any judge, whenever I'm on a panel, I always talk about the proper way to go over and judge a golden retriever and all of this frenetic activity and expectations. And I just said, no, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. And if I'm in a show now, if I see that being fostered and rewarded, I will say to them, you just did a great disservice to my breed, and let's talk about it. I mean, I'm at the point now, you know, I'm 60 years old, and I don't give a rat's ass. And if I have to say it and open my mouth because I'm passionate and I love my breed, I'm going to say it. You know, I don't care.
Fair play to you. And I think that's great that the club are adopting that attitude, because that's where it starts, education. Slowly and surely. I got somebody asking you your thoughts on ear cropping.
Fortunately, I have never been active in any breeds that I've had to crop ears. I understand from an aesthetic standpoint, you know, some of the breeds that are continually being cropped here, that it defines the silhouette, and I grew up with that, so it's not something that was never not there. But I have a hard time with what the dog has to go through and to obtain that look. If I was a breeder of those particular breeds, I would breed a correct ear, and I personally would not crop. However, I do believe in cropping tails. I do not fault judge. You know, any dog that's brought in front of me, I understand the tails on the dogs. And, you know, Peggy and I had many conversations, heated, about tails. And, you know, it doesn't bother me one way or the other. But from a working perspective,
Absolutely,
not a showing perspective, the
absolutely,
value of having a dock tail is paramount for them to do their job.
absolutely.
So,
and particularly HPRs.
Exactly. So you know, that's my stance on ears and tails. But
I think what's more worrying for me is the fact that on this side of the Atlantic, they've now banned the removal of back dew claws.
Just ridiculous.
Which is ridiculous. And, you know, I think any groomer worth their salt will tell you a back dew claw, you know, when you're grooming it with a comb or whatever, it's lethal. And, you know, it doesn't at 4 days old, it really doesn't hurt them, but long-term health benefits are so much.
Not at all.
Ridiculous.
I mean, we used to dock our own tails. I mean, as a youngster with the, and
absolutely, yeah.
And you know, I totally am okay with that. The ears are a different story.
Yeah. Okay, we'll lighten the mood a little bit now. 4 dinner guests, past or present, that you must have. I won't limit it to 4. If there's more, you can have them. That you must have at a dinner party.
Well, since I, you know, cooking is a passion and I love to entertain, so there would be a huge household of people. But, you know, I'm sharing this with you from a dog perspective, because obviously, but first and foremost, Peggy would be here at the front of the table, and my second, and I got to be careful because I'll get a little emotional, but Dr. Donald Jones, he was like a second dad to me, and my first partner, David White, and the ever loved Iris Love, who was a dachshund breeder in the U.S., and she was a world-renowned archaeologist and lover of life and art. And she and I had so many conversations that transcended beyond the scope of dogs. So I think those four people at a table would offer me all of the things that they would touch on all of my passions and the passions that transcend beyond dogs, and I would leave really fulfilled.
Super. And if you had a famous person to throw in there, have you got one?
Oh wow! I think. Pardon me?
A celebrity?
I don't think it's so much a celebrity as it would be. I think there are a handful of amazing artists, and probably religious and political figures that I would like to pick their brains. But celebrity status, no. But I think they're people that have made profound contributions to the world through their creative journey or through their service that I would feel profoundly emotional to be in their presence.
And you mentioned art there, Michael. You were in your own right quite a gifted artist. I'm sorry, I didn't have time to download some of your art, but it's a second passion. Am I right?
Yeah, I went to. I have multiple degrees, but two of my degrees are in the fine arts, and painting, drawing and painting and printmaking bring me. It grounds me and connects me to the world on a deeper level, and so I have my studio inside and outside, and I do a lot of painting and I love it, and I have the ability to paint like a photograph and to reproduce things that some people think, oh my God, it's gorgeous because it looks just like what it's supposed to, but that's not what I'm about. I'm conceptual work, organic, and connecting with nature, and so it's whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. It brings me great joy, and it's very therapeutic, and I spend a great deal of time with my artwork.
And it is well worth going to Michael's Facebook page and having a look at some of his artwork, because it is quite amazing. Quite a gifted guy, aren't you?
I think it's a HDHD, and I channel it well.
So, is there a judge or breeder you really admire in the US or in the rest of the world?
I gave a lot of thought to that question, and there are the list is really, really long.
I'm sure.
And because I judge, am still actively judging, I don't want to promote a breeder, because they're going to end up in my ring, and someone's going to say, well, he mentioned on that interview that that person's going to win every time they go in the ring. So I'm not going to do that. But so just know that everywhere I judge in the world, I meet and just amazing people that consistently produce quality animals. But I have to say that there's two gentlemen that I don't get enough of, as far as just sitting down and talking dogs at the level that I like to talk. And one of those is Andrew Brace, and we have to discuss dogs via social media. And it's just so nice to be able to have somebody that understands the people that were profound in my training and upbringing, and that we have similar stories to share, and we can talk about the subtle nuances about breeds and the sport. And the other person in this country is Dr. Donald Sturtz, who we were in junior showmanship together, and we've evolved and stayed best friends. And we share so many common interests, and it's always a treat to spend time with him.
Well, Andrew is watching tonight.
Oh no! Hi, Andrew.
So your funniest or most embarrassing moment as an exhibitor or a judge?
I think from an exhibitor, I was in the Best in Show ring in High Point, North Carolina, with another golden bitch of mine. Not the best one I ever won Best in Shows on. And it was in the Best in Show ring, and it was hot, and it was indoors. And the superintendent of the show left the butt end roll of the mat inside the group. So you know when a roll of mat, and then you have this sort of hard cylinder that it wraps around. Yeah. And I went and did the corner on the last go around of Best in Show, and my foot went in the hole, and I tumbled and went ass end over teacup. Thankfully, I didn't land on my dog, and I just laid there. I didn't break anything, and I was like, "Oh my God!" So I got up and continued. I ended up going Best in Show, but it was absolutely humiliating.
Oh yeah, that must be.
But from a judge, I've had so many from a judging perspective. Well, from a handling perspective too, I got my head caught up under Jane Forsythe's skirt because she was judging. She was a small woman, and it was in Birmingham, Alabama, and she was going over a golden bitch in front of me, and I was down on my knees with my golden bitch, and she stood up and leaned back, and when she did, she caught my head up underneath her skirt, and I was flailing away trying to get loose, oh yeah, that was funny. But you know, from a judging perspective, I had a woman who was showing, she was an amateur owner handler, and she had a pointer dog, young dog in the ring, and she said it was her first time in the ring. I said, well, don't worry, everything's going to be good. And over the stack, she says, I just want you to be careful of his pearls. And I said, I'm sorry, be careful of his pearls? She goes, yes. She said, they're special. And I said, what are you talking about? She says, well, they're very tender. And she said, they're special, and I want you to be careful. Well, she was talking about his testicles. And I was just like, oh my God. And I had to, like, through the conversation, get out of her prior to going over her dog that's what she was talking about. There you go.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. I have this image of sorry, that image of your head stuck under somebody's skirt is just, it's not going to leave me.
Oh yeah, God.
Oh, that's very good. Okay, so what's your guilty pleasure?
Great food, great wine, great art, and great company. Those are the four things. They're so important to me. Is good friends, good food, good wine, and beautiful artwork.
Okay. And if you could be transported to another country, is there any particular one?
Well, yeah, Ireland, of course.
Very.
I'm also
diplomatic and correct.
Yes, there you go.
Have you been here much?
No, that was the first time for me.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. And I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, well, we'll have to have you back, because I did, from the comments I got on Facebook, you went down very well. So finally, Mike, if you could write your epitaph, what would it be?
You know, I thought about this a long time, and I realized that I'm not going to have one, because first of all, I'm going to be cremated and tossed in water, so nobody's going to give a damn. And you know what's funny is when my mentor Don Jones passed away a few years ago, and like I said, he was like a second dad to me, and he was a very popular man and judge, and he judged Best in Show at Westminster and put up the Uno the Beagle. And when it came time for his funeral, and I spoke with him every week, and right up into his death, and I saw him just a short while prior to him dying. I went down to visit with him, and I spoke at his funeral. And when you figure that he was somebody that was a member of a huge all-breed club, he was a international well-known judge. He judged Best in Show at Westminster. And other than one other couple, a husband and wife, and myself, we were the only dog people at his funeral.
Yeah.
And I was in tears. And that left me realizing that in this industry that we are involved in, that you're only as significant and important as your ability to hand out a ribbon. And that was a real wake-up call for me. And you know, it quickly put things in perspective, how wrong the focus is. And I still grieve over that. And it made when I was thinking of this question, I thought, no, there'll be nothing said, and hopefully I will have left my mark that everybody will be saying that for me. But the chances of that happening are, based on what I experienced, could be pretty slim.
I don't know about that.
Well,
I don't know about that, because
yeah,
I tell you, Michael, thank you very much. This has been
sure.
a really great interview. I've thoroughly enjoyed this.
Thank you.
I know people on Facebook have. You've had lots of people watching. Michael Forte from Ireland, Jane Hayward from the UK, Fred Davis, many people, Andrew Brace, as I said. It's really been fascinating to get your insights.
Right.
I hope you stay well. I know you've had your jab, but we
Yeah.
don't know what's around the corner. Stay safe. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm in awe of what you do and what all of you in the health services do across the world. And I look forward to seeing you soon somewhere.
Likewise.
Hopefully back in Ireland.
And
Hopefully.
good luck with that young bitch.
Yeah, well, we'll see how she goes.
Yeah.
In the meantime, thank you everybody for watching tonight. I hope you found it as fascinating and entertaining as I did, and informative. And I will see you at the same time next week, 7 p.m. And in the meantime, just stay safe, keep obeying the rules, and I'll see you then. Good
Thank
night.
you.